Was my family seriously joking? I could hardly believe the tiny sum they mentioned. Just the other day, my phone had been buzzing nonstop with calls from my parents. When I finally picked up, they erupted before I could even say hello. My dad's words were a blur at first, leaving me completely disoriented. Only later did I piece together the shocking truth. They were livid about the money I was supposedly sending my sister, Mara. According to them, I had been wiring $112,000 every month, while they thought I was barely sending $880. But here's the catch, I had been sending the $112,000, just like Mara. You must be lying, my dad shouted, his voice trembling with frustration. Mara makes more than you with her modeling career. She's so thoughtful, sending us $112,000 a month. And you? You've been living like a princess, spending money on yourself. We're so disappointed in you, he grumbled, his tone dripping with disappointment. My mom jumped in, her words sharp and accusing. How can you live like this, splurging your money on yourself? Mara, at least, shows she cares about us, she sighed, clearly exhausted by the thought of me. I had always known that Mara was their favorite. She was the stunning one, the one who turned heads wherever she went, while I was often forgotten. The comparisons began when we were kids. Everyone always praised her beauty, making me feel like a shadow beside her. People joked about how plain I looked next to her, and I never knew how to shake that feeling. It was clear to anyone who looked at us that Mara was destined for the spotlight, either acting or modeling. My parents showered her with attention, enrolling her in any class she wanted and ensuring she always had the latest trends. Meanwhile, I made do with hand-me-downs and no extracurricular activities. Mara grew up entitled, believing that what was mine should be hers. She took my things without asking, and when I protested, my parents would simply tell me, "Let it go, Amanda, she's younger, be a good sister." They dismissed my feelings so easily, always siding with her. The favoritism only deepened as we got older. In elementary school, when Mara decided she wanted her own room, my parents didn't hesitate to kick me out. They moved me to the living room, saying it was no big deal. After all, I didn't have many belongings, and there was enough space for me to sleep. So, I spent my nights surrounded by old family portraits in the living room, my new bedroom. I'd had enough. I decided to stop sending money home. Maybe it was petty, but I wanted to make a point. I was Amanda, a 31-year-old working at a food processing company, and I had spent my entire life in Mara's shadow. She was the golden child, the beauty, the success. Meanwhile, I was the one who could never quite live up to their expectations. But through all the harsh comparisons and constant feeling of being overlooked, I held on to one thing, my grandfather's words. He had always adored the Amanda flower. He said they were resilient, blooming after every hardship. As a child, I would sit on his lap, wrapped in his warmth, and he would tell me, "Amanda, no matter how tough life gets, you can always push through. After the hardships, happiness will bloom, just like the Amandas in spring." Those words became my anchor, especially during the dark days when I felt I was losing my grip. My parents had always treated Mara like she was the only one who mattered. I never really felt at home in my own house. When I told them I wanted to be a school nurse and talked about university entrance exams, they dismissed it without a second thought. "We can't afford university for you, Amanda. We need to save for Mara's future," they insisted. Even though we weren't poor, my dreams were sacrificed for Mara's. After high school, Mara went off to a prestigious university, while I entered the workforce, taking a job at a company just a few train stops away from her. Eventually, I rented a tiny studio apartment close to work. It felt like freedom from the constant comparisons, the never-ending favoritism. Mara, on the other hand, flourished at university, and before long, she was scouted by a talent agency. My parents couldn't stop talking about her, bragging about her modeling career, practically glowing with pride. Then, one day, Mara called me, her voice practically sparkling with excitement. "Amanda, we owe everything to Mom and Dad," she said. "We need to start sending them $12,000 each month. It's the least we can do to show our appreciation." The amount took me by surprise. $120,000 was a huge sum, and while modeling may have paid well, I was only making $66,000 a month at my job. If I agreed, I'd have to slash my expenses and somehow find extra income. So, I reluctantly took a weekend job as a security guard at a construction site. It paid well but was physically grueling. Summers were sweltering, and winters were bone-chilling. Many times, I thought about quitting. But I didn't. I kept going, driven by a mixture of guilt, loyalty, and a desire to prove I wasn't less than Mara. I clung to the words my grandfather had said to me all those years ago, hoping that after these hard times, happiness would bloom for me once again. Even though I was exhausted, balancing my demanding job and certification studies, something unexpected happened. My coworkers, some of them rough around the edges, began to show kindness, buying me drinks and food, understanding the effort I was putting in. I was doing everything I could to save, cutting back on eating out and unnecessary luxuries, but the $112,000 was still a stretch. Determined, I decided to earn a professional certification. I poured every free moment into studying. Days blurred into nights as I juggled work and learning, pushing myself to the limit. The exhaustion was intense, but deep down, I knew I had to keep going. This was my fight, and I was determined to win. I had missed several calls from my parents, and when I finally had a moment to return their call, I was hit with a barrage of anger. The moment I answered, my father's voice boomed through the phone. "You are horrible. Do you think we're idiots?" he yelled, with my mother's voice echoing in the background. Equally furious, my stomach sank. "What's wrong? Are you talking about the money I send?" I asked, confusion flooding my mind. I couldn't fathom why they were so upset. "Do you know how much Mara is sending us?" My father's voice was dripping with outrage. $112,000, and you sent just $80? Are you mocking us?" His words hit me like a slap to the face. "That's impossible. I've been sending $112,000 every month," I replied, my voice shaky with disbelief. "Don't lie. Mara earns more than you from her modeling. She's the one sending us $112,000 a month. I'm really disappointed in you. Mara is so smart," my father continued, his voice thick with disappointment. Before I could explain, my mother chimed in, tearing into me for my lifestyle choices. "Why can't you be more like your sister? She actually cares about us," she sighed, disappointment heavy in her voice. I was speechless, a mixture of confusion and sadness weighing me down. How could they not see the truth? It suddenly dawned on me, there had been a catastrophic misunderstanding. Mara had suggested we keep our financial contributions anonymous, using the name Rainbow to keep things discreet. At the time, I had no idea that her stage name was Rain, and now, the transactions meant for our parents were mistakenly credited under my name, Amanda, with Mara's larger contributions going unnoticed. Before I could clear things up, my parents curtly declared they didn't need my mocking $80 and hung up on me. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but mostly, I was furious with Mara. Why hadn't she clarified things sooner? Why had she left me to take the fall? The weight of the situation kept me up at night, my thoughts spiraling in turmoil. I wasn't sure if I should continue sending money, but I knew I needed advice, someone outside of the madness. I called Scarlett, my high school friend, who was known for her clear, no-nonsense perspective. She worked at a consulting firm and always seemed to have her head on straight. When we met for lunch, her face showed immediate concern. "What happened?" she asked, noticing the distress on my face. I laid everything out, my parents' accusations, the money mix-up, and my frustration with Mara. Scarlett took a moment to think before responding. "Are your parents struggling financially?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Aren't they in their 80s? Her surprise was evident. "Mara's sending $112,000? That's crazy. It sounds like they have debts, but that's money spent on them, right?" As I explained further, Scarlett helped me gain a broader perspective. She made me question everything. "You say it's money spent on both of you," she said, "but you didn't even go to university, right? Isn't it mostly Mara's money they're relying on? And your dad's still working. There's no reason they need $112,000 every month. That's unimaginable. They've been living just fine." Her words hit me like a revelation. Scarlett was right. Why was I letting my family guilt trip me into sending so much money when they clearly didn't need it? I realized I had been conditioned to believe my financial contributions were essential when, in reality, they weren't. Scarlett's advice hit home. "You're too kind, Amanda. You don't owe them anything. Stop letting them walk all over you." Those words echoed in my mind as the days passed, and I made a vow not to be swayed by my family's pressure anymore. But then, 3 months later, my phone rang incessantly one morning. It was Mara. Her voice was tight with anger. "Why haven't you been answering your phone? Why did you stop sending money? What were you thinking?" Her frustration crackled through the line. I had already been overwhelmed by my own financial struggles, but hearing her anger just added to the weight. It wasn't long before I discovered the truth about Mara's so-called generosity. Scarlett, who had discreetly been gathering information through mutual acquaintances, revealed something shocking. Mara's financial contributions were mostly about preserving her image, not necessity. My big sister is my source of funds, Mara had confided to her friends, complaining about her struggles with her finances. Lately, I've had to cut back on facials and cosmetics because I'm relying on her money. It was becoming painfully clear that Mara wasn't the saint my parents believed her to be. Meanwhile, I was pouring money into their wasteful habits, my mother indulging in luxury brands, my father gambling and not even working. It all seemed absurd now. Do you really think I don't know Dad is still working? My money isn't needed here, I confronted them, finally putting my foot down. Later, my parents came to me, expecting me to resume the $112,000 payments. They'd finally talked to Mara, who tearfully admitted that she hadn't been earning nearly as much as she had claimed. Her modeling career had been a facade, her gigs were sporadic, low-paying, and often for bargain bin online catalogs. The truth shattered their perception of her as a successful, self-sufficient adult. Despite this, my parents' attitudes didn't change. We've been strict with Mara. Don't worry and just send the money again, they demanded, without a shred of remorse. We're counting on you, after all. Their entitlement was staggering. They even expected the 3 months of withheld payments to be reimbursed. We've been saving up for this, they claimed, so just deposit it when you can. We know you're reliable. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Is there some debt we're not being told about? I asked, my voice steady but filled with suspicion. Debt? My father scoffed. Absolutely not. We covered all the tuition with your grandparents' inheritance. Their dismissive response only deepened the sense that something was off. It was clear to me now. My family wasn't in financial distress, they were simply living beyond their means and wanted me to keep up the illusion. Then why doesn't Mara get a full-time job? I asked, my frustration bubbling over. My father's voice cut through the air, sharp and accusing. Is that how you speak to your own parents? I didn't raise a daughter to act like this. My mother's voice joined his in harsh agreement. We don't need a daughter like you. If you're going to be like this, they threatened to use the inheritance my grandfather had specifically left for me. We'll just use your grandfather's savings for you. You're no longer part of this family. The coldness of their words hit me like a brick, and I was left stunned, utterly betrayed. They were willing to cut ties over money, over nothing. I felt discarded, disposable, questioning my worth in the eyes of the very people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. After they left, I broke down, the weight of their rejection crashing over me. Months of silence passed. Then, one day, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. It was my parents, and Mara. I hesitated for a moment, unsure what to expect. When I opened the door, I was taken aback by their worn, tired appearances. They looked nothing like they had the last time I saw them. Meanwhile, I had been working hard, focusing on my studies to obtain a small business consultant certification. My salary had increased, and with Scarlett's help, I'd landed a new job as a team leader. I was finally starting to feel like I was in control of my life, my future. But they didn't seem impressed by any of that. Instead, they were accusatory, their eyes scanning me like I'd done something wrong. What's with the luxury? My parents asked, eyeing my new clothes and healthier appearance. Before you indulge in such luxuries, give us some money, they demanded, their desperation palpable. I couldn't hold back anymore. I confronted them. With Dad's and Mara's income, you could live comfortably. What's really going on? I pressed, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Mara, her face a mixture of frustration and regret, began to cry. She confessed that her struggles in the modeling industry had been far more difficult than she had let on. She had been scouted by a new agency and, believing it would boost her career, invested a significant amount to join, but it turned out to be a scam, and the agency disappeared with their money. Just as she spoke, a representative from a consumer finance company arrived at my door, asking if I was related to my parents. They had traced my address, and I was stunned to learn that my family had borrowed a large sum in the hope that Mara's career would turn around. In addition to this, Mara had been spending recklessly at nightclubs to cope with the stress, making things worse. When the finance agent asked if I was related to them, I didn't hesitate. I don't know these people, I said firmly. I have nothing to do with them. The harshness of my response surprised even me, but it felt necessary to protect myself. It was clear, I had to sever ties with them, not just emotionally but legally as well. The fallout was swift. My parents filed for bankruptcy, their debts wiped clean. They had to sell our family home and move into a modest apartment. Despite everything, they both found temp jobs, and managed to make ends meet. Ironically, My father ended up working at the construction site where I had worked part-time years ago. On his first day, a colleague greeted him with a laugh. "Ah, it's the old man, help me out here. There used to be a young lady here, but she quit. She worked hard sending money to her parents. I'd love to see the faces of parents who'd make their daughter work here." I'm sure my father's expression hardened at the mention of me, but I could only feel a sense of justice, cold though it was. Mara, having abandoned her modeling aspirations, tried her luck in the nightlife scene. Unfortunately, her self-centeredness and lack of charm with customers led to her being quickly dismissed from several clubs. Eventually, she found herself scraping by with small earnings from a bar. Her once glamorous appearance deteriorated, and the tales of her modeling days became a distant memory, mocked by those who knew her. "A model? Who are you kidding? Look in the mirror," they would say. As for me, I was done with the family that had only ever taken from me. I focused on building my own life, my own future, and 6 years later, I found myself at Scarlett's wedding, held in a beautiful chapel overlooking the sea in Tampa, USA. The vast blue sky stretched endlessly before us, and I felt a sense of new beginnings. Scarlett, standing next to her beaming husband, looked radiant. She had achieved so much, and the look of happiness in her eyes was contagious. During the ceremony, she leaned over to me, her smile wide and warm. "Amanda, you should also face your feelings. I achieve everything I want on my own and quickly discard what I don't need." Her husband joked, "Don't throw me away, okay?" His playful tone lightened the moment, and I couldn't help but laugh. Scarlett's wedding wasn't just a celebration of love, it was a celebration of freedom, the freedom she had helped me find. I couldn't thank her enough for her unwavering support. "Scarlett, be happy. I'm so grateful to you," I said, my heart full. As the reception came to a close, Scarlett introduced me to a friend of hers, Ethan, tall and confident with a charming smile. He ran an architectural firm, and as he and I spoke, I found myself laughing and connecting with him instantly. We agreed to grab a meal together. As we talked, I felt hope blooming within me, a spark of excitement for the future, and I realized that this was the Amanda my grandfather had always believed in, the strong, independent woman ready to take on whatever life threw her way. Moving forward, I embraced both work and love, determined to live life fully, to blossom as I had always dreamed. "Grandpa, please keep watching over me from above. I'll make sure to blossom fully," I whispered to myself, a smile spreading across my face as I looked to the future. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more great stories. Don't forget to tap the notification bell, so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments, we love hearing from you. See you next time, and take care.